Hello, legal researchers. My name is Jessica Almeida, and I am a librarian here at UMass Law. Today, for our third session in the Summer Internship Series, we're going to talk about federal and state dockets. So, why would you need a docket? I have to say, for my own personal use, I'm using dockets from a researcher perspective. Obviously, dockets are used in court system and in courts all over the United States in a way to upload and court documents and to keep track of what is happening on specific cases. But from a researcher's perspective, using different docket systems is a great way to find briefs, petitions, motions, charging documents, a lot of different things that you can't just usually find in a quick Google Westlaw Lexis search. It's also a great place to find injunctions and orders, trial transcripts. If you're looking for something the judge specifically said, you can get trial transcripts through the dockets. And in a lot of trial courts, the decision is actually in the docket note. So they don't really have a specific order that looks like what you would normally see in an appeals court. The court clerk has just made some notes into the docket of what the judge's decision is. Okay, so there are a bunch of different types of docket systems. The first one you probably know, it's the federal docket system, PACER. Now, the thing about PACER is that we have an account here at the library, but only the librarians use it because it's a pay for service. So in other words, every time you do a search, you get charged. Anytime you download documents, you get charged. So usually what we do is we ask students and faculty to request things, and we'll go into PACER and pull them for you. Now, a really great kind of workaround to the PACER system is Recap. Recap is through the court listener, and what it is it's PACER documents for free. Other docket systems, all the court systems have their own docket systems. Some of them are really easy to use, some of them are not. It depends on the state court rules and how much access you have as a public person or as a researcher. Westlaw has a docket system as well, and Lexis also has CourtLink. Now, it's interesting that both Westlaw and Lexis, their docket systems are not always connected to Precision and Lexis Plus. So in other words, if you look up a case and you get the opinion, if you go to the top to see what other filings there are, sometimes the docket is not in there, it's separate. So you need to go into dockets to actually get some of the briefs and motions and that sort of thing. That's not always the case, but it's good to have that in the back of your head while you're researching. What kind of info do you need when you're using these docket systems? Well, they're all different, but it's best to know your jurisdiction, your court. A case number is like gold. If you have the case number, that's the easiest thing to search by. But a date or the party's name or the attorney or judge is really helpful as well. So before I jump into Lexis, I'm going to use CourtLink today and do an example. If you have any questions about dockets in general or about research strategies using dockets, feel free to contact me directly. That's my email address, or you can contact the law librarians at lawlib@umassd.edu. I also have our phone number, and we have a text service as well. Okay, so for today's example, I actually got this from a faculty member last year. The faculty member sent me this article and really wanted to not only see the order, the temporary restraining order that this particular judge issued, but also wanted to see the briefs because the professor was interested in how they were asking for remedy. I think that's what they asked for. Or what they were specifically asking for. Was it for their jobs back? Were they asking specifically for some type of restitution, that sort of thing. Okay, so now we're on the library website. I'm going to go to the bottom under quick links and we're going to go to Lexis Plus. So here in Lexis Plus, we're going to make sure our tile is on legal research, and then we're going to go into Court Link, which is right here. Now, the great thing about Court Link is you can search by a lot of different ways. In other words, you could use keywords. You could, if you had the docket number, you could use the docket number. You can search by litigant, judge, etc. So I'm going to go and grab some of this information that we're going to need. So here is the article that I was talking about. So the first thing I want to think about is what's the jurisdiction? And when we read this article, we find that the jurisdiction, it's in California, it's a federal case. The court is the U.S. District of Northern California. There is no case number. Bummer, I know. The article is February 27th, so we know that the judge's order is around that time. The party name, we have the Office of Budget and Management and the American Federation of Government Employees. And the judge is mentioned a lot in this particular piece, specifically large quotations from the order, and that judge is Judge William Alsup. So, taking all this information from the article, I'm going to go into Court Link. And so we know what court, it's in California. It's a California district court. Okay, we don't have the docket number, we don't need keywords, but we do know who the litigant is. The litigant is American Federation of Government Employees. And they're the plaintiff, so I'm just going to put plaintiff. We know the judge's name, so I'm going to put in Alsup is the judge. But you also can do attorney, firm, the litigation area. There's just a lot of different ways to search. And then down at the bottom here, we're just going to click search. Okay, and so that gives us only one. So we know this is it. I'm going to click in. Okay. So here it is. It gives you, this is the court docket, District Court, Northern California. That's correct. That's what we're looking for. The date it was filed was 2/19. So we know this is the case that is from the article. Here is the judge's name, and it gives you kind of like the scope of the case, the nature of the suit, the jury demand, etc. Now, at this point, it goes through the participants and it can be quite long, especially for an action like this. So I'm just going to close that, but really what you're going to see is the litigants and all the attorneys of record and their contact information. So I'm going to close that up. Here in Lexis, they do, for some, not all, they do a complaint summary, but it's AI. So, we read it, but, take it with a grain of salt when we do our due diligence. And then now we're coming to the actual docket part. So it goes by date, but you can change it. So the first one is the complaint, which was filed on February 19th. And that's the very first document. So as we go down, you can see everything that's happened in this case. And then when you get to something, you'll see here on the left-hand side, this free, it's highlighted free. They're not always free, or they're not always there. Sometimes they're not in our subscription. So that's when you would go to Recap or Pacer or Westlaw Dockets and see if you can get the documents through there. But what you want to do is you just click if this is a document that you would like to see. and you hit Get Documents. And then right here it says it was a success, so we're just going to hit View. And then that gives us the document. On the right-hand side, they also try to categorize it to make it easier for us to navigate this very large docket. So as you can see, it says 7 cases, there's 3 pleadings, there's 4 briefs, and 57 motions, and then there's 404 other court documents. So if you were just looking for a specific motion, you could click in here, and then you could do a keyword search to try to find the motion that you're looking for to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so that is how you go about looking at a docket, specifically from CourtLink, from Lexis's CourtLink. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Now, there are a lot of other kinds of docket systems. I'm just going to quickly go through them. I'm not really going to search in them, but if you have any questions or you'd like me to go into more detail, feel free to reach out to me. I do research consultations. I'm happy to sit with you and talk you through any of these docket systems. So here in Westlaw, you would go into Westlaw Precision. And then under specialty areas, you would hit dockets. And then you can continue to drill down just by determining your jurisdiction or your agency. Once you click on it, it will show you which dockets they have it for. So they have, for the federal, they have the US Supreme Court, First Circuit, Mass Federal District Court, and then here are the state dockets as well. Now, they don't have everything the same for Lexis. Sometimes you're not going to find exactly what you're looking for, and sometimes you need to go to the court clerk and get the documentation from the court directly. But trying these systems first is a good way to get what you need. This is Pacer. And the easiest way to do Pacer is to just search for a case. You can do it by, as you can see, by a specific court. Let me see if I can log in. Nope, wants me to choose the court. I usually use Pacer Case Locator only because when I use Pacer, I do my best to already do a lot of research ahead of time. Once again, Pacer, every time you search, you have to pay for it. It's not a lot of money, but after a while, it can add up. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll try to use Westlaw or Alexis or Recap or any other system that I can to find out as much information as possible. So sometimes I'll go into CourtLink or Westlaw Dockets, get a case number, and then use this quick search to find cases. So you can do it by court, and then you just put the case number in, and then you search, and it comes up easily. You're not spending so much time trying to dig around Pacer and getting charged every time you click. This is Recap, so it's very similar setup to CourtLink with a lot of different ways to search. And once again, this is all federal and usually is quite easy to use. So if you can't find it in Lexis or Westlaw and it's federal, I would come to Recap first and use Pacer as kind of your last option. And then, of course, there's always state courts as well. This is the Massachusetts trial court system. When you need to search for case dockets, they have the trial court, the SJC and appeals court are in 2 separate systems. The trial court dockets is actually Let's see, I'm going to show you. So I'm only allowed to search public records because I am not an attorney working in the courts. So this is what I sometimes use. However, I'll show you, it's sometimes very difficult to research only because you need to know which court they're in, which division they're in, and then you need to have their last name and their first name in order to be able to even start a search or a company name. So you need to already have a lot of information. You just can't have some keyword searches and guessing and that sort of thing. I know it's in Massachusetts somewhere, but I'm not sure the court location. For public records, you really need to know the court and the division and the location, that sort of thing, before to let you do any searching, which is good for privacy concerns. But for researching, it can make it a little bit more difficult. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But I want to come back to the library website and just remind everybody that our contact information is here. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all about research strategies, um, federal and state dockets, and how they work and how best to research in them.